Welcome to today's webinar, The State of Contingent Workforce Management, also known as The Future of Work is Here. I'm Deb Bergevine, Vice President of Marketing at DCR Workforce, and I'm going to serve as your host for today's session. So before we start, I want to take a moment to review a few things you need to know. First, today's session will run for the full 60 minutes that was scheduled for the event. All attendees are going to receive a copy of today's presentation, so there's no need to take copious notes. And in addition, a replay will be made available starting tomorrow. So if you missed anything or you want to share the session with others in your organization, we'll send you the access details. We do encourage questions, so the lines are on mute, but please submit your questions in the Q&A box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And of course, if we're running short on time, any unanswered questions will be addressed by our team via email. And finally, please contact the help desk if you experience any issues with the webcast. So let me take a moment to tell you a bit about DCR Workforce. We are delighted to be hosting this event today. DCR provides talent management and services procurement solutions. So what does that mean? It's more than traditional MSP and VMS services. We offer guidance, strategies, operational assistance, and the technology needed to manage all workers and, of course, the agencies that provide them. So this includes agency-supplied contract workers, perm employees, freelancers, and project teams delivering SOW-based services. DCR's VMS system, SmartTrack, provides the industry's most innovative and comprehensive platform for total talent management, which Chris is going to be talking about total talent management to some detail. SmartTrack is currently being used by hundreds of clients in 80 countries around the globe. We are now in our 21st year of operation. We're a certified woman and minority-owned company, and we're truly vendor neutral. We aren't part of and are not affiliated in any way with a staffing company. Those of you who have worked with DCR know that we're driven by two imperatives. We are data crazy. For us, it's all about research and analysis. At DCR, we recognize the wisdom of the old adage, expect what you inspect. So we also know that strong programs are built on a deep understanding of how they're performing and why they're performing that way. So we use market data on trends, benchmarks, and best practices to help clients understand what they should do today and what they should do tomorrow. And we partner with the industry's best experts, as you see today, to bring our clients a deep understanding of where the market's going and how they can capitalize on new trends. We are also collaborative. It goes without saying that nothing's more important than excellent customer service, but being collaborative goes well beyond working closely with our clients. Because we don't provide staff augmentation services, we must provide our clients with the industry's best staffing agencies, and rather than competing with them for a rec, we do everything we can to make sure that our suppliers are successful. Next slide. This is the second year in which DCR has had the privilege of hosting the premiere of Ardent Partners' definitive research into the state and future of contingent workforce management. I am personally so pleased that Chris Dwyer is joining us today. So many of you follow his research and read his insightful CPO Rising articles and his blogs. Chris is a recognized expert in spend management and contingent workforce management. And in each of the last 2 years, Chris has been named as Analyst Superstar by HRO Today. And he was recognized as a pro to know by Supply and Demand Chain Executive Magazine in 2014. Over the past decade, he's authored more than 300 research studies and reports on the evolution of the non-employee workforce. Chris?
Deb, thank you so much. Good afternoon to everyone on the line today. Very, very excited to be here. And as Deb had said, this is the second year in a row that we've been able to have a webinar around the world premiere of the findings from the annual State of Contingent Workforce Management Research Report. So I want to take a minute and thank Deb and the entire DCR Workforce team for hosting and sponsoring today's webinar. So again, my name is Christopher J. Dwyer, Research Director at Ardent Partners. And who is Ardent Partners? And don't be fooled by the supply management experts moniker. We are more than a mere supply management research analyst and advisory firm. And Ardent was founded about 6 years ago with the #1 goal of advancing, defining, promoting, and evangelizing the next-gen supply management strategies, processes, technologies, solutions, and approaches to help not only procurement executives, but other executives as well, anyone ranging from HR, to the CPO's office, to the CFO's office as well, in accelerating organizational transformation. Again, don't be fooled by the moniker of supply management experts. We are more than just a mere supply management research firm, which we'll learn about in a minute. So really quickly, I want to give everyone a overview of today's webcast. So as soon as we get the intro and background out of the way, we'll talk about, what is the current state of today's contingent workforce and why we're calling it the future of work is here. We'll take a nice long look at the best-in-class contingent workforce management program. Over the past couple of years, I've been talking about something called the 360-degree CWM program, and it's really only been until now that we've actually put some nice research and a little bit more definition around what that really is. And of course, before we take some Q&A from the audience, we'll unveil some recommendations for action and what the path ahead is for not only you but your contingent workforce management programs. So, as I said, are not just a mere supply management or procurement research firm. We are very, very, very deep in the world of contingent workforce management, and the way that I like to define our research in the space is by talking about it in a few different ways. The first way is via evolution. We all know that the contingent workforce of today is much different than it was even just a couple of years ago. We enjoy talking about the fact that the space is rapidly changing and evolving into something where non-employees are a bigger part of the overall workforce. Talent is available on demand, and it's forming something that, even though I'm not a big fan of the term, a flex economy or a gig economy. Innovation, of course, is a big part of today's contingent workforce and all the programs that are utilized to support the non-employee workforce. So our research also covers things like, evolving applications, emerging technologies, progressive solutions, everything from the evolution of VMS platforms today to freelancer management and online labor marketplaces. And of course, Deb talked about how DCR is as a collaborative solution. We do talk a lot about collaboration on the program side. So, who holds the main responsibility for managing contingent labor or non-employee workers? Where's the blend of spend management and talent management? And we're very excited at Ardent that we're able to write about these things pretty frequently. And of course, the reason why everyone's here today is to take a look and discuss the world premiere, the findings from our third annual Contingent Workforce Management Research Report. So, the state of contingent workforce. Again, third annual edition of this landmark study. Those of you that have followed me from from my days at Aberdeen know that I've been writing an annual study in this space for a very long time. At Ardent, this is the third annual edition of the State of Contingent Workforce Management Research Study, and at nearly 215 research participants. And what was really exciting about that is that we had insights from a variety of executives, not just procurement, again, we're not just a supply management firm, but also finance, HR, operations, IT. We really felt that this year's research study was the best representation that we've ever had for this type of research report. And I think as everyone will look at the findings, and we'll talk about it today, it's not just a mere HR game or procurement game any longer. There are different stakeholders within the organization that must pay attention to this category in this industry, and of course, there's many reasons why that is. And of course, the research report tackled things like best practices. We'll talk more about that when we get to the best in class section. Programmatic guidance, so this is the third annual edition of not only this report, but Ardent's patented contingent workforce management framework. And if you're an organization that's just starting the journey into contingent workforce management, we built that framework with you in mind. So what are the major categories of non-employee talent? What are the metrics we should use to track the performance of that labor and of the program overall, and what are the capabilities and solutions that really tie everything together? So I really want to just dive right in. I mean, there's a lot of content to go through, and as Deb said at the beginning, we do encourage questions. So if you have any questions at all about the content or about where the market's heading or anything at all about this industry, don't be shy. Make sure you use your Q&A button and ask us a question. We'll address everything at the end. So the future of work. You know, there's this phrase that's been going around for a while, and it's it's not new. I mean, the future of work as a trend has been a part of our lexicon for a while. But what does it mean? You know, what does the future of work really mean for businesses today? And you really can't get around the fact that no matter where you go in terms of business news, the Uberization, the on-demand aspect of talent today, the fact that there's a gig economy or flex economy, all of these different news items are popping up that's showing, hey, this contingent workforce, this non-employee workforce it's a pretty significant thing. And I think what's really, really exciting about all this is that it's changing how workers are sourced and how work is actually done. And I think that at the end of the day, we see that it's not a traditional makeup of workers anymore. When we think of the very critical tasks and objectives within our organization, we're not just thinking about how the people already on staff can address that. I mean, the future of work, what does it mean? Well, at the end of the day, it's the fact that any enterprise need, no matter the size, scale, or scope, can be addressed, managed, and led by non-employee workers. And that's the future of work. And not just non-employee workers, but on-demand workers as well. So I know word clouds aren't so super hip like they were a few years ago. I remember, many internal meetings at my prior firm when we throw up a word cloud and use it as a way to talk about the future of our business and and all different things about how our company can improve. But I thought it'd be really cool to take the first chapter of the State of Contingent Workforce Report, plug it into a word cloud generator, and see what popped up. And what's the number one thing that came around? Talent. Talent was that big word that was more widely used than anything other than the first chapter of the report. And that's, and I don't say it's funny in a ha-ha type of way, but it's interesting in the sense that 4 or 5 years ago, if I was writing this report, talent, workers, workforce, those types of words weren't really used to describe the contingent workforce industry. I mean, we were only really looking at it from the perspective of, hey, here's another very complex spend category. It's growing in stature, it's growing in size. We know that it's going to grow in the future, and we figure out a better way to drive visibility and intelligence, and try to figure out a way to manage the cost around it. And 4 or 5 years later, the big picture is really talent, and that's really exciting for those organizations that are heavily relying on non-employee workers today. So we can't move from a slide like that into something that's not about evolution or change. And what's really interesting about the contingent workforce industry today is that it's just changing so much. And the research found that 95% of organizations see non-employee talent as vital to day-to-day operations, to the achievement of core project-based goals and objectives, and vital to ultimate company success. And I mean, it's not a huge increase over last year. We saw that 92% of organizations checked off that vital category for non-employee workers. But it's showing that, hey, at the end of the day, it's not just majority. It's the vast majority of organizations see non-employee talent and the contingent workforce as a vital component of the overall business. And of course, more and more of the average company's total workforce is considered contingent or non-employee. It's a nearly 10% increase over last year. 35% of today's total workforce is considered contingent in some manner, whether it's freelance, whether it's service, whether it's a contractor, whether it's a temporary worker. The contingent workforce today is varied, it's deep, and it's complex, and that's great. I mean, that's when you think of the fact that we are moving into a more talent-oriented contingent workforce management era, while that, for some organizations, that may speak to change management and, hey, we have to figure out a much better way to utilize our resources and our technology to manage this growing area of our business. What's really exciting about it is the fact that talent is being put ahead first, meaning we have needs as an organization. There are certain skill sets, there's a certain level of expertise that we need that we don't have today, and we don't have to go the traditional route anymore. We have on-demand talent available at our fingertips that can come in and can be utilized in a short-term manner, in a project-based manner, to get the work done that we need to get done. That's what the future of work really is. So along that line, I don't like to be that analyst that talks about how exciting something is and then take it back to something negative. But again, I think visibility is always a big problem for companies today, not just within contingent workforce, but when you're talking about your just overall spend, you're talking about supplier risk, aspects like that, finance, invoices, expenses, budgets, projects. Visibility is always a problem, no matter what you're talking about. But in regards to the contingent workforce, we found that only 18% of companies today have a strong visibility into their quote-unquote worker footprint. So what's the worker footprint? That's visibility into your total workforce in terms of talent, skill sets, and expertise and resources. So think of a company that has strong visibility into their worker footprint, understands the impact of their workers, what skill sets are available now, and what skill sets they need. Companies that don't have that strong visibility obviously are going to have some issues in the months and years ahead. So continuing along the path of evolution, when we look about the past, when we talk about how contingent workforce looked years ago, yeah, it's primarily staffing based. And you're like, well, yeah, Chris, we know staffing is just a big part of it, no matter the era. Yes, but staffing suppliers, I think, were the #1 source of non-employee workers back in the day, quote unquote. You saw a lot of low to mid-level talent. There was some very high-level talent and expertise available years and years ago via, freelance or independent means. But in terms of contingent workforce management as a competency and as a strategic force, it's more low to mid-level talent. Obviously, you brought in some consultants from time to time that drove very critical, very time-sensitive projects, but for the most part, not so much. A very light penetration within the total workforce. And you see there around 7% in 2006 as an estimate, is around 17–18%, right on that very edge of the economic downturn and the beginning of the economic recovery period. So it was very light penetration. You think, hey, only 17–18% of our workforce is considered contingent. And likewise, what happened is that I think a lot of organizations, it was a low priority. So even though it was growing and even though spend was increasing, it still wasn't at that really true strategic level that it needed to be. And most of the programs, again, taking it from a low priority link right there, founded on procurement principles, and obviously there's nothing wrong about that. I just published an article to LinkedIn's Pulse today that talked about the impact of procurement. Procurement has a huge impact on contingent workforce management, and I don't take this as a negative that most of the programs in the past were heavily utilizing procurement and sourcing principles, but those are really the only principles. And I think that as procurement's evolved over the years in regards to managing this industry, they've realized that there are other things that need to be blended in. So it takes us to really the present day. Look at the difference in some of these items. On-demand talent. Again, I think that the bottom line of the future of work and talking about where work can be done and how it can be achieved is the fact you have talent on demand. Whether you could pop online in an online labor marketplace, you can use a mobile app, you can write through your technology solution, you can source labor, you have in-network and out-of-network talent, personal networks, talent pools, the list goes on. It's on demand. It's, in real time. And that's what's really exciting about our industry, of course. All levels of talent. I think there's an emphasis on top-tier skill sets today. Again, another shade of the future of work is that it doesn't matter what talent base need you have at your organization. It's the fact that any level of talent can be addressed, managed, needed, or led by independent talent. More of a moderate penetration in our total workforce. I just talked about that last year it was getting close to a third. Today it's at 35%. And, as we're going to see in the future, that's going to obviously grow even more. It's becoming more of a strategic imperative. I mean, I don't want to say that contingent workforce is the #1 priority for businesses today, but it's one of the top 5 or top 10 priorities for them. And that is a big difference than 5-10 years ago. And I think that as organizations are seeing the impact of non-employee talent, we saw that 95% of companies today consider it vital. You can't consider something like this vital if it's not truly strategic. I mean, especially around the programmatic standpoint that, as a program, CWM is, it needs a lot of resources, it needs time, it needs budget, it requires a lot of things to run really smoothly. And then, of course, blended programs, I mean, procurement and HR, I mean, does it get any more collaborative than that? Think of the best of spend management along with the best of talent and workforce management. You throw those together, and you have a program that can manage the more traditional elements with also the human capital elements, the emotional elements, the talent acquisition, the talent management elements as well. In the future, where are we going to go? And you're seeing some of this stuff today, but I think we're going to see even more of it. It's may even become a standard for a lot of programs in the future. Automated real-time matching of talent to projects. I mean, think of having the ability to have a project pop up somehow, and it already knows the talent, automated. Real-time, automated. That would be truly exciting for our industry. I mean, we're starting to get there, and I think that's going to be more standard element of our contingent workforce programs, where whenever a need pops up or a project pops up, we're already going to know what the resource we need for that is, instead of taking the time and losing very valuable time and money and energy and all of that trying to find the best fit resource or skill or talent for that. All roles and talent levels, that's not going to change. I think that you're even going to see more and more organizations fill, that moderate to high level talent with, independent workers and contingent workers and non-employee workers and services. And that's going to lead to, of course, a higher penetration. I call it in the report the path to 50%. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I don't think you're going to see this in 2017. But in 2018, 2019, we could be living in a world where half of our entire workforce is considered non-employee or non-traditional. And that is something that you couldn't imagine 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And finally, total talent management. I've been talking about this very passionately over the past few years, and that's not going to change. I think that total talent management really is the ideal foundational program of the future. The ability to manage all your enterprise talent via one single centralized banner program of processes, of approaches, of capabilities, of competencies, and systems as well, all working together to manage all enterprise talent. That is where the future is. So, love to get into some of the actual research findings from the report. I was really interested going into this year's study to figure out how talent is concentrated. And this isn't just talent as in the people. This is the skill sets and the expertise. So where's the real talent? And currently we see that the vast majority of talent is concentrated in traditional workers and FTEs, and we're still going to see that in a couple of years. But what you notice is that more and more, not only are the true talent and skill sets going to be concentrated in the contingent workforce, but there's going to be a more even concentration of talent in the future. And I think, if we had the ability to put another bar here, maybe 2019 or 2020, you're going to see those blue and gray bars, dark gray bars, be a lot bigger than the red bar there. So what is that telling us? That's telling us that the real skill sets, the real talent, even though the majority of that is still concentrated in the more traditional FTEs and traditional workers within our company, we're seeing more of a shift in the market where, again, that high-level, top-tier quality talent, the real expertise, the real skill sets are going to be more concentrated in the non-employee workforce. So something called the balancing act, and here we're going to get a little bit more into the program and into how companies are actually managing their independent workforce, their external workforce. I've always said that for those of you that are the number one person or the number one group for managing contingent labor, it's a balancing act. It's not easy. I mean, it's not like some of the other categories of spend. It's not like some of the other functional units within your enterprise. It's not just this very easy bucket of spend or bucket of workers that you can manage in traditional ways, or you can just manage from a cost perspective or just a mere visibility perspective. And what we're seeing is that the top challenges in contingent workforce management today all revolve around this balancing act of visibility, intelligence. Think of data, think of who are our workers, where are our workers, what's the impact of those workers, how are the projects going that are linked to those workers, performance of those workers, along with something like compliance. I mean, we could talk about compliance to death, and still too many organizations don't really get the message that if you mismanage your independent worker base, you could be at risk for things like co-employment and reclassification. And I don't need to tell you the big names of the big household brands that have gone through those nightmares in the past, but you don't want your organization to be that big company that's in the news for having a class action lawsuit from your tens of thousands of independent workers that say that they were treated like employees and are eligible for the benefits and all of that go to regular employees and FTEs. You don't want that, of course, at the end of the day. And then, of course, the pressure to reduce cost savings and improve savings. Reduce cost and improve cost savings. Still, you can't think of something like contingent labor and completely think that cost is going to be the sixth or seventh most important metric. We're talking about a third or more of your workforce today. We're talking that a bulk of that spending is going to be on professional services and SOW-based labor. We're talking about the fact that it's a vital component of your business, and that's going to suck up a lot of financial resources. So there's always going to be a spend management aspect to contingent workforce management, and that's never going to change. And then finally, improving the way talent is engaged. I think there's a one-shot graphic from this report that I would show to companies that are just trying to figure out things in contingent workforce management. It's this one. It's a balancing act. It's talent. It's cost. It's compliance. It's visibility. The next frontier, those of you that joined DCR in Ardent for a webinar over the summer, that goes in late August, we talked about SOW management, and I really wished I had this finding to share during that webinar. And of course, we hadn't collected the data yet. That was about 2.5 months ago. But I think one of my sort of pseudo predictions from earlier in 2015 came true when I said that more and more organizations are going to start to look at SOW management as a more strategic component of their overall contingent workforce program. So in Ardent's research, we have something called the Contingent Workforce Management Framework. We're not talking a lot about it today, but it's a big part of the report. And we break up all non-employee talent into 3 buckets: staffing, complex, and independent/freelance. And the way that I sort of define those is, staffing is your staffing suppliers, more traditional non-employee labor. Your complex contingent labor, that's SOW-based labor, projects, services. Think of things like consultants and deeper more complex services like that. And then independent freelance, those are the workers that you source directly. The term, one phrase that we utilize in the research as well is something called self-source talent. You're not going through a staffing supplier, you're not going through a service, you're sourcing that talent directly. And for SOW, which is hand in hand with what we call complex contingent labor, it needs to be the next frontier. It's not just a question. It's hey, organizations today are far behind. I mean, I think that the vast majority of organizations today are sort of beyond they're beyond the aspect of, hey, it's just a spend management or supply management type program, but they're getting very excited by all of the new sources of talent. They're getting excited about the future of work, and that's great. That's fantastic when you're an organization and you're thinking about talent as the #1 aspect to your non-employee workforce management program. But the stark reality is that too many organizations are forgetting this SOW piece. And, we're seeing that, only 28% of companies today have it as a strategic component of their program. But, another 23% say it's tactical. And what's the difference? Tactical is your basic blocking and tackling. It's your, hey, there's certain projects that need to be managed, who's involved and which services are we using, are we being mildly compliant, do we have very basic supplier management tactics and workforce management tactics. Being strategic means that you're able to generate visibility, you're able to generate intelligence. You know where projects are going to be before they actually get there. You know what your contingent workforce is going to look like, months ahead, based on the data and visibility and intelligence and information of today. That's being more strategic about SOW, and that is something we hope to see more and more companies adopt in the future. So total talent management, and we're going to dive into the best-in-class section in a second. And, but before we do, the future of contingent workforce management, I think, is total talent management. And, I could speak for, a couple hours just on total talent management, but today it's just a small sliver of the event. But we asked organizations, if you were to put together today a total talent management or total workforce management program where all of your enterprise talent was managed in a centralized way using integrated systems and using integrated processes and having a perfect harmony between procurement and HR, what would the benefits be? And you see here, enhanced visibility into your talent pool. Again, what's the biggest advantage of total workforce management or total talent management? It's the fact that any enterprise need that pops up, you know who or what is going to address that. Is there a consultancy we know? Is it a freelancer that's in my personal network? Is it someone we already have on staff? That's the benefit. That's the #1 benefit of total talent management. And that sort of goes hand in hand with more intelligent decision making. When it comes time and you're in the middle of a project and you maybe need to utilize another service or freelancer just to support some of the subcomponents of a project, well, you have more intelligence around your decision making for that. Reduction of your overall labor spend. I think that it's sort of hidden nowadays, the fact that there is a cost benefit to utilizing contingent workers where, obviously you're not paying for benefits, you're not paying for, there's lack of taxes, Social Security, health benefits, 401k, things like that, really the #1 reason that organizations utilize contingent labor back in the day, hey, it's short-term relationship and they're not a full-time employee. But I think with total talent management, I think you're going to see more and more organizations be able to reduce their overall labor spend because they're going to know, hey, what's the best makeup of talent for our business? And then, better quality of data, seamless processes from requisition to project completion, all those benefits of total talent management. And I think we're going to see more and more organizations, as I talked about a little bit earlier, are going to move into a direction where this is an ideal foundational program for them. Truly exciting. And then, of course, we can't talk about contingent workforce management today without mentioning the technology. And today's webinar isn't all about technology. And again, like total talent management and like some other aspects of today's webcast, I could spend hours just talking about the technology. But when we look at the landscape today, what we're seeing is that there are very mature solutions out there that have been doing this for a long time. Obviously, vendor management system usually comes out on top as the #1 solution utilized in the market today, along with the more consultative approaches, the more day-to-day operational approaches of a managed service provider. But we're also seeing things like, advanced independent contractor and global compliance management solutions. Companies offer things like advanced analytics that are usually rolled up in a VMS that can provide real-time visibility into talent pool, into projects, into SOW, into spending, suppliers, compliance, risk, all of that. And you're seeing more emerging solutions as well, like freelancer management, and mobile applications. I think a big part of this idea of the future of work is the idea that there are going to be different solutions and different outlets for sourcing talent. And, freelancer management systems have been obviously gaining a lot of steam over the past year and a half, 2 years. And of course, the idea that you can source your talent from your phone for a lot of executives today, that's another clear representation of the future of work, that, talent is available on demand in real time. So I think sort of a blanket statement here is that the solution landscape today for contingent workforce management, it's very complex. But even though it is complex, companies today really can't go at it alone when you're talking about the specific competencies or capabilities of a contingent workforce management program. And the enablement of certain processes and capabilities and approaches, specifically around something like a VMS platform, which really is a nexus for all, things concerning supplier, spend, project, SOW, and talent. Obviously, this is a big component of how this space is going to continue to evolve. And organizations, like I say, and it's going to be one of my recommendations, sort of a teaser here, that they can't just go it alone. They do need automation. So getting into the best-in-class way, what does best-in-class contingent workforce management look like? And sort of as a good way to set it up, I'll talk very briefly about how we determine our best-in-class. So there are, and again, we know this, contingent labor today is very complex. It's very intricate, and as such, you can't measure the performance of your program based on just 1 or 2 metrics alone. So we sort of took that approach with our best-in-class. So above all else, best-in-class organizations have an average quality index score for their talent of 8.7. What is the quality index score? Well, it's a metric that Ardent Partners designed a couple years ago, and it's utilized to describe the true performance of an organization's non-employee workforce. And it uses metrics such as, this is just a handful, percentage of projects or services that actively hit delivery dates and milestones, percentage of services suppliers that are compliant, percentage of temporary workers that achieve of their goals and objectives, percentage of freelance and independent and self-sourced talent that actually produces on time. It's a wide variety of metrics that go into this one index score from a score of 1 to 10. And above all else, best-in-class organizations are utilizing a higher quality talent than all other organizations. And of course, cost savings, we're never going to completely get around cost savings as a metrics, but 9.3% annual cost savings on the contingent labor spend. And that just doesn't mean that they could cut 25% of the contingent workers and boom, great savings. This is based on the same number and frequency of contingent labor usage from year to year. So they can't cheat by telling us that their cost savings are because they cut, 10% or 20% of the contingent workers. This is from the application of automation, application of efficiencies, and application of more rigorous principles to control spending and be better about budgets for their contingent workforce. Average contract compliance rate of 82%. That means that 82% of their workers are compliant with localized labor laws, tax codes, independent contractor compliance requirements. obviously, again, is another sort of subcategory of contingent labor that we could go on a deep path and talk about for a couple of hours, but we won't, is compliance. Think of how compliant you are, in regards to your contingent workers, especially because you're using global talent nowadays. If you decide that you're going to go into a new country, you're going to expand your contingent workforce program, you're going to start sourcing talent from new regions, new locales, well, there are going to be different tax codes there. There's going to be different labor laws. You need to know those things before you expand your programs. And I think that the average compliance rate for the average organization doesn't really even approach the best-in-class way. And that tells us that best-in-class companies are actively promoting compliance when they're sourcing global talent. And finally, 84% of their overall contingent labor is accounted for in their corporate planning, financial budgeting, forecasting, and planning for the future. And what does that mean? Well, that means that they have visibility. Think of your ability as an organization today with all of the analytical tools available to be able to sort of predict the future. Hey, we know that we're going to be, 10% over our budget in 8.5 months. Well, fantastic. Based on information, what can we do today to make sure that doesn't happen? It's the same thing for contingent workforce management nowadays, where these best-in-class companies, the top-performing organizations, are able to have the foresight based on information today to be able to act in the future. Hey, we know that certain projects are going to need certain types of workers. We know that our overall budget is going to be huge in 3 months. Is there any way we can get that down? And then sort of on the flip side, you want your contingent workforce to be more strategic at the end of the day, right? I mean, that's really where contingent workforce program should be. It should be a top 5 priority or top 10 priority for organizations today. Well, you need to have the visibility and be able to present that to your executive team. We know that certain percentage of our workers are contingent. We are compliant in most ways, and there are certain projects that are utilizing contingent workers that are performing well or underperforming or whatever it is. All of that information rolled up can help you paint a very vivid picture of your non-employee workforce, and that's very critical to make contingent workforce management more strategic. I talked about a concept a couple of years ago and really just sort of put a little bit more rigor around it this year of 360-degree contingent workforce management. And what it means is that a true 360-degree program has the capabilities to address these 6 specific items of non-employee workforce management. Intelligence, meaning data and visibility. Talent, not only talent acquisition, but talent management and workforce management as well. Risk, we're just talking about compliance. Technology, having the automation in place to link capabilities and enable certain efficiencies. Global, having the ability to take your contingent workforce programs to new regions, new locales, to not only source better talent and source the right talent, but to enact global capabilities to ensure your program is compliant and utilizing the same standard procedures that you utilize back at home. And then, of course, spend management as well. I mean, obviously, procurement and spend management and supply management is a big part of contingent workforce today. So you sort of have that dichotomy there of being able to balance both spend and talent in your same program. And we're not going to spend another half hour talking about 360-degree contingent workforce management, but I will use this as a good stage setter for talking about a couple of different aspects of the best-in-class program. One is the idea of core capabilities. And what do you see here? You see global expansion, more formalized. Goes back to the global compartment of 360-degree. Onboarding and offboarding, that's usually sort of more human capital or talent management type of capability. Standardized day-to-day ops, and then having a specific category manager linked to contingent workforce management program. These are just a handful of the dozen or so capabilities that we found as part of the best-in-class program. The reason why we've sort of picked these to show is I think it's a good representation of just how deep the best-in-class program really is. Onboarding and offboarding is something that seems very very standard. Hey, onboarding and offboarding, it's a part of our program, but how deep is it really? How complex and how effective is it really? When you're onboarding so many new contingent workers, are they able to perform? What's their time to productivity? For those consultants or freelancers that have access to sensitive information or systems or data, are we able to offboard them in the right way that, they don't still have access to our ERP system, they don't still have access to our building, when they're, when their assignment or their project or when that agreement ends. Global expansion methodology, I think that's becoming more and more of a game changer today. We can't just find local talent to support everything. We need global talent. I mean, the fact that we can source talent today in an on-demand, real-time manner means that the number one person for the job could be, 6,000 miles away, and that's why organizations need to understand, the impact of globalization. If we're moving into a new region and we're utilizing workers in a new country, are we able to be compliant? Do we know enough? Do we have the expertise, about tax codes and labor laws and cultures and things like that that make, a global contingent workforce a true reality? The best-in-class reliance on big data. I mean, we talk so much about visibility that it's, of course, we want to talk about how big data impacts. And now, I know you're sick of hearing the phrase big data. I am too. I mean, but at the end of the day, we're living in a big data world, and for contingent workforce management programs nowadays, that is especially critical. Best-in-class companies, being those top-performing organizations, they have real-time visibility into their non-employee workforce. They know where their workers are, they know what they're working on, they know their performance, they know the budget, they know how far they are in terms of milestones and delivery dates. That's something that's very critical to contingent workforce management programs today. They can classify and cleanse their data. I mean, that's something that's you're taking sort of a page from your spend analysis playbook. You're classifying, you're cleansing spend data, so it's real spend intelligence. Think of that in the same way of contingent workforce intelligence. Using data and information in talent decision making. We talked about total talent management and how that's going to become more of a reality in the years ahead. Well, having the intelligence today to make better decisions about talent tomorrow. I mean, that's really what total talent management is all about. We know what worker or what type of worker, what type of service. We know where they're coming from. Is it our talent pool? Is it my personal network? Is it someone that we utilized in the past? Is it a retiree? Is it an alumni? Having intelligence in talent decision making is going to be especially critical in the months and years ahead. So we have about 10 minutes left, so I very briefly want to go over some of the recommendations for action and then the path ahead for managing your non-employee workforce in 2016, and we'll save a few minutes at the end for Q&A. So honestly, again, and I've been saying this a lot throughout the course of the webcast today, we only have an hour. I certainly can spend an entire hour just talking about what you can do, coming out of this webcast to improve your program today. But if I were to boil it down to just 3 recommendations, one of the 3 would be understand the impact of global and on-demand talent. Know that understand the impact of globalization, know that talent is available in real time on demand. I can log on to a marketplace, a job board, I can look at LinkedIn, I could look at my social media, I could look at my social networks. I can leverage a variety of means today, all with an on-demand foundation to find, source, and engage talent. And I think organizations today need to understand that that's one of the bases for the future of work is on-demand real-time talent. Build 360-degree capabilities, competencies, processes. We just showed sort of a sliver of what the best-in-class program looks like, and you saw a couple there. There was sort of more general capabilities, things like standardization, things like reliance on analytics and big data. But that 360-degree contingent workforce management program utilizes a variety of capabilities, from global talent management to workforce management to spend management, risk and compliance management. The best programs today are the ones that are very well set up for the future, and you can't be set up for the future if you're not addressing the intricacies and complexities of today's non-employee workforce. And of course, prioritize contingent workforce management as a true strategic imperative. I know that that for some of you that are listening in today, contingent workforce management, it's a top 3 priority. It's something that you're keeping an eye on. You're actively allocating resources. You're understanding how you can gain visibility via automation. You're doing all the great things. But for too many more other organizations, contingent workforce management isn't as strategic as it should be. So if you're one of those companies that's not pushing it or not prioritizing it, well, now is a good place to start. I mean, if a third of your workforce or more is considered non-employee today, that's only going to increase in the months ahead. And there are so many talents, skill sets, resources, expertise available out there in the independent world of talent that you're going to see that that's talent and skill sets and expertise that you need to be successful, and you need to have the proper measures around that. So recommendations out of the way, how can you prepare for 2016? And these aren't necessarily recommendations. They're not just questions. They're not just blanket statements. They're just insights. We're a couple months away from the end of 2015. What are the things that you can do now, or what are some of the insights and aspects that you need to think about going into next year? Figure out how talent's comprised at your business. I mean, I think that's always the #1 step. What percentage of your workforce is SOW-based? What percentage of your workforce is staffing supplier-based? What does your freelance talent pool look like? How are you sourcing talent? How are you engaging talent? How are you finding talent in the first place? Know all of these things, because it's going to help you figure out where your best sources of talent are and the best pools to pull from in the future. Be open to all new emerging sources of talent. Again, I push that idea home. The future of work is based on the idea that talent is available in an on-demand, real-time sort of way. Don't ignore things like freelancer networks, online labor marketplaces, even social media and LinkedIn and sources like that. You never know where the best fit talent can be, so don't just keep an eye on the more traditional means of talent. Pay attention to identity management issues. This sort of goes hand in hand with compliance. With a growing workforce comes growing risks, and that can't be stated strongly enough today. If you're using a lot more independent talent, contractors, freelancers, the relationship between you and those workers needs to follow the proper guidelines. Again, you don't want to be that one company that's in the news for reclassification or co-employment or any of the big compliance aspects that pop up from time to time. Total talent management should be the future ideal. I mean, think about it. In a couple of years, few years, 50% of your workforce could be considered non-employee. And if half of your workforce is non-employee and the other half are more traditional employees, well, that's when you should be merging or, should have a program in place by then, I would imagine. But total workforce management, total talent management, this isn't just some fancy ideal. It should be, the future ideal. You should have a program that can manage all enterprise talent, resources, and skill sets under the same banner of processes, capabilities, systems, and yes, functions as well, like procurement and HR. And then SOW isn't going away anytime too soon. You're always going to have SOW-based labor. You're always going to be using consultancies. You're always going to have consulting projects. You're always going to be using third-party workers that are based on an SOW. This is the next frontier. You need, as an organization, to be able to manage SOW from both a workforce and talent management approach, as well as a supplier management and spend management approach as well. And it's a reason why I've been talking so much about that SOW management should be more strategic. And then finally, automation and integration are keys to ultimate success. I know we didn't talk a ton about technology today, but we did talk about the mature solutions, the emerging solutions, how analytics, how more emerging forms of technology are available today. Your more mature solutions like VMS really serve as a nexus to all things contingent workforce management. Best-in-class companies are much more likely than all others to have programs that are built on a foundation of automation and integration with other key systems. I think that, as you move forward to a world where total talent management is the norm, you're going to see things like VMS merged with or integrated with talent management and RPO, contingent workforce technology with ERP and general planning. It really is an exciting future for technology in contingent workforce management. Before we wrap up, let's take some questions for the audience. And before we do, Deb, just give me 1 second, then we can ask the first question. Anyone in attendance today that maybe you're in procurement, maybe you're in finance, but Ardent Partners is launching our first annual live event, live procurement symposium, in March of next year. Of course, would love you to attend that, but just wanted to let everyone know before we took questions. And I'm going to leave both Deb and I's contact info up. Feel free to contact any of us if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chris. We have received a few questions, so why don't we, in the time remaining, let's kind of get started. So, Chris, first question. Is total talent management for real? Can we really expect these types of programs to be a reality in the years ahead? When do you think most companies will move from thinking and talking to actually implementing a total talent management program, and what implications does that have for the working relationship between procurement and HR?
Very loaded question, but a great question there. I mean, I think that total talent management is for real. I think that more and more organizations understand that the makeup of their talent is becoming more blended. Again, when you think that 35% or more of your workforce today is considered non-employee or external or whatever phrase you want to use, it's critical to be able to blend sort of your procurement and your human capital capabilities. I mean, the way that I always put it, the thing to think about at the end of the day is the fact that as needs pop up at your organization, you're going to need talent, skill sets, and expertise to address those issues and those needs. And you're not always going to have that talent in-house. There's always going to be a need for non-employee workers. Think of a world where no matter what the need is, you're going to know pretty much right away in real time who can address that need, whether it's someone already in-house, whether it's a freelancer we worked with in the past, whether it's a third-party service, whether it's someone that's in our business network, maybe it's an alumni. Total talent management, the biggest benefit there is enhanced visibility. It's better decision-making about your talent. And sort of wrap up my answer there, can we really expect this to be a reality or companies to adopt this type of approach in the future? I think we're still a couple of years away from having some pretty clear use cases or some business case studies about how companies have really adopted it for a couple of years and they've seen benefits. But I think within the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to become the norm.
Great, thanks, Chris. Second question: what's the best way to transform SOW management?
Good question. I think the best way is to promote it as a more strategic component of the whole organization. I mean, I think that a lot of the procurement and HR execs that I've talked to in my day that have had success in pushing SOW management as being more strategic are able to say, hey, the bulk of our contingent workers, or X percentage of our contingent workforce, is comprised of workers or services or freelancers or contractors linked to an SOW. We need the right resources. I mean, the best SOW management programs blend supplier management and talent management at every level, at every corner. And the best way, again, if there's a sort of a 3-point program or 3-point step, number 1 is understand the makeup of SOW. 2, push a collaborative nature where you're blending supplier, talent, and spend management, workforce management. And number 3 is to put some level of automation behind it. I mean, you can't really manage SOW in a deep, real-time manner without the right technology.
Okay, which leads us to our next question. What's your position on product convergence? What types of standalone workforce products that exist today do you think will become absorbed and just become standard features of other products?
So I think it's a good question around integration and convergence. I really like that question. I mean, I think that you're going to see, and Ardent's going to be putting out research in Q1 of next year that's going to be talking about innovation in our space. But you're seeing more and more companies today integrate things like RPO or talent acquisition or talent management with their contingent workforce technology. And on the flip side, you're seeing more and more organizations have a direct link between something like ERP and their VMS. And that's what's exciting about that is that promotes a free flow of information and data. And at the end of the day, that's really the number one goal should be the number one goal for your contingent workforce program. You know, having visibility into everything. Contingent workforce today, your non-employee workforce, it impacts everything from budgets to projects to finances to quality to technology implementations to legal to every aspect of your organization today is probably supported in some way by non-employee workers. It only makes sense to have the right technology and the right mix of technologies to understand what that impact really is.
Okay, great. And final question, we're kind of at the top of the hour, but final question, how can my company make contingent workforce management more strategic?
I think that if you're making a business case for maybe adopting a contingent workforce solution, or you just want, you know, more resources and time and energy to be allocated to contingent workforce management, the number one recommendation I always have in making it more strategic is presenting just how big a part of your workforce it is. I think that so many organizations at the end of the day don't understand. They may think that it's a small percentage of their overall workforce, and then when they do some digging and they figure it out, oh wow, 35% of my workforce is contingent, 40%. You know, I mean, some organizations don't understand that, you know, freelancers, professional services, and independent contractors are part of the contingent workforce. I think that there should be more education around what is the non-employee workforce. And, you know, it's not just the workers you source via staffing suppliers. It's your freelancers. It's your alumni coming back. It's your professional services, SOW-based work, independent contractors. To make it more strategic, you just present the idea, hey, this is a bigger part of our organization than we thought in the past, and we need to make this more of a priority.
Great. With that, we will close the session. We want to thank all of our participants for their attention, and as indicated, we will be sending you information with the replay and the download of the document. And my thanks to Chris for what was a very insightful and very interesting session. Thanks to all of you.